Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we're going to be checking out a track from an actor named Yonatron titled Support Your Local Ice Raids. And if we switch over to here, I can almost guarantee this is going to potentially, at least potentially, get a controversial reception from people, given the subject matter. But to be honest, and this is not exposing my personal feelings on it just yet, I think that an unfortunate byproduct of how overcrowded the music industry is at this point is that there will be a need to try and poke at people a bit with a stick to get a reaction out of them. We'll just see how this track goes. We're here to review the music and we're going to listen through it from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. What do we have?
Yeah. Roll up in the truck, got the coffee in my cup. Chef on the radio said he need a look. Ain't no time for slacking, boys, we got work to do. Gotta check them papers, yeah, we run a tight crew. Blue lights flashing down on Main. Diners empty, skipped out on the bill again. Ain't about the hate, no, it's about the law. So grab your badge, son, it's time to roll. Support your local ice raids.
It's kind of interesting because the subject matter is, there's been some horrific stuff in regards to this. However way you feel about it, provably there's been some horrific stuff with these raids. And in terms of the music, it's almost like a rockish kind of celebration of them in the sense stuff. You know what I mean?
Round 'em up, send 'em back, that's the way we play. Ain't no room for feeling bad. No, that ain't nice. Do your part, grab a neck, keep our country tight.
Yeah.
Keep our country tight. Jimmy down at the car wash, been working for a steal till we ran his ditties. Man, the deal wasn't real, now the boss is hollering. Who's gonna wax my ride? Guess he should have thought before he crossed that line. Blue lights flashing down on Main. Diners empty, skipped out on the bill again. Ain't about the hate, no, it's about the law. So grab your badge, son, it's time to roll. Support your local ice raids. Round 'em up, send 'em back, that's the way we play. Ain't no room for feeling bad. No, that ain't nice. Do your part, grab a neck, keep our country.
It's interesting as well that we talk about ain't no room for feeling bad. Almost like it's just something we shouldn't even try to consider, Because it's more important to just do things instead of thinking about how we should feel about them.
Keep our country tight. Now some folks will say we're being mean, but rules are rules, know what I mean? If you don't like it, take a seat, 'cause we don't play, I support your local ice raids. Round 'em up, send 'em back, that's the way we play. Ain't no room for feeling bad. Do your part, grab a net, keep our country tight. Keep our country
So I thought that little guitar riff at the end was kind of neat. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an actor named Yonatron titled Support Your Local Ice Raids. Now, just for disclosure, just so that people don't think I'm fence-sitting on this without going too far into it, I don't particularly like a lot of what I've heard about the ice raids. I think it's a tricky subject with immigration, obviously, and I'm not in the States to comment on their specific situation, which will probably automatically disqualify me, but just I don't like the idea of families getting torn apart and stuff like that and all that kind of stuff, especially with some of the ways in which it's been quite violent. So I think innately, that's just where I personally stand on it, but I think that it's important to be able to sort of respect the fact that for Yonatron, potentially it's something that they agree with. And this is part of why I don't review lyrics or give my comments on the actual validity of a story that's told within a track outside of how I feel about the subject matter, It's why I don't review lyrics, because I just feel like the moment you start getting into the stories, of tracks and trying to gauge how valid a story is, you start getting into some really kind of rocky territory. With the music itself, it's a bit easier to follow along with the fundamentals of that. With that in mind, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I can't see a list of who's involved with this track. This may be AI generated music, I'm not quite sure. But either way, I'm going to talk about a few other things I like, as well as any sort of like constructive critique. I think in terms of constructive critique, actually, just off the bat, there isn't really any, in the sense that I think that this is a song which has been kind of created to suit a mood and an agenda, to talk the story, to kind of give examples of, supporting the raids and everything like that. And I think that inherently it's just a very safe composition. You've got guitar parts and bass parts and drum parts and little kind of lady bits at the end. The vocals are in tune, If it is AI generated, it's very difficult to get an AI to try and sound human. The technology is greatly improved, but it just doesn't necessarily, it's just a bit too kind of in tune, if that makes sense. But then I know a lot of other, human musicians are using auto-tune and stuff like that nowadays, It's a complicated situation. I think if I gauge the vocal performance within this, I think that it's satisfying. It would have been nice to have a bit more dynamic range to this. It seems like we're kind of slamming the compressor on the mix when we go into the chorus, and it's kind of, even though you can tell there's a bit of extra more oomph, there's like an artificial limiter set there. So that it sounds louder when it isn't necessarily. The mix itself is quite compressed. There are sub-layering decisions there to kind of adjust the levels, but that, I think, in general, the vocals are really well handled. The melodies themselves are compelling. I think that we pop off really neatly between the verses and choruses. The kind of folksy country rock aesthetic here works really neatly. It's easy to follow along with the styling they're going for. The way they sort of with the stanzas, the cadence of it, working really neatly with some of the rhythms of guitar and bass and drum parts as well. There's a fusion and chemistry between those. And there's enough going on with the instrumental backing to allow for some similarities between the way we approach the melodies within the vocals, to kind of keep it intriguing for the 2.5 minutes, where the 2.5 minutes is quite short, I think ultimately it's just a really comfortable performance on the mic there, and we're sort of happy with the head and chest voice. The range is nice and present within the frequency spectrum there. Nothing's competing with it. Music surrounds you in the headphones. And there's nice little bits of vibrato as well as we go into a head voice. Yeah, it's a catchy track. We understand the fundamentals of making pop music in this country rock sort of genre. I think the various guitar steel string picked parts there, we have some sort of really effective riffs there. There's a kind of a cheery nature to it, almost like we're trying to give a major leaning to this despite the subject matter. It's like we're trying to sort of soften the reality of the situation there to try and focus on how we're doing a good thing, according to the lyrics of the song. And it makes sense for the subject matter. I think that having that kind of feel fall on to the chorus there with the distorted elements there, the drums being nice and punchy with the various sort of kick, snare, and cymbal patterns there, the bass being nice and supportive in the low end there, allowing for things to kind of fade out with kind of the sort of individual guitar at the end was kind of neat. And there's adjustments of the pitch of the guitars as well. Sometimes we go into the upper range, in that intro part. There we have the guitar in the mid-range and the one upper octave. There's clear sort of attention to detail there and trying to sort of flesh things out neatly. And we allow space for the vocalist when required. I think finally it's the structure of it actually. I think that you told the story that you needed to within 2.5 minutes there. You didn't overstay your welcome there. You said what you needed to and you bounced out. Works well within the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, where if it's less than 2 minutes you might miss some important sort of details or sort of nuance there or information, whereas if it's over 4 minutes there, you're kind of in a tricky position or a bind where you need to sort of add further diversification in order to keep things kind of intriguing, maybe have different riffs or a new section or something. Here we had sort of several verse and chorus sections there, an interlude kind of section there, and we were bounced out with the short outro, instrumental outro at the end. We said what we needed to, we didn't overstay our welcome again, and ultimately that's it. It's just a short, sweet, effective song where the vocals are compelling with the melodies, and especially if you vibe with what the story is telling, you'll appreciate it. that the major leaning towards the instrumental motif makes sense with the subject matter we're discussing, as well as some really compelling instrumental performances or parts in this, and it's nice and short and sweet, so the structure is good too. So ultimately, that's my review of this track from an act named Yonatron, titled Support Your Local Ice Raids, and depending on how you feel about it, you might have enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and the Spider YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next Desperate Reacts. Spiderhands out.